Kaz Beats, I'm Ascending.
So we continue the topic of secret societies, and we're going to focus on the class of ideas and concepts. So it's really important you understand these concepts because we will build on them throughout the semester, okay? So last class, we discussed the transformation of religious worldview during the course of Western history. So at first, there was the mother goddess. Minds perceive the world radically change in three aspects. The first is that then that leads to matter. Okay? But today in science class, you're taught that's the opposite. It's the brain that the brain creates the mind. It's very problematic. Okay? So we will discuss this throughout the semester. Okay? The second big difference is before we understood the world metaphorically. Okay? So we saw that the world was controlled by societies. So these four societies that first came into being are China, the Indus Valley Civilization, the Harappan Civilization, which is now northern India, Mesopotamia, which today is Iraq, and of course the last one is Egypt. BT. In Egypt, it's the priests who are really in control. The pharaohs are just the puppets. Okay? And it makes sense, right? Because one person cannot control an entire empire. It's the priests, the bureaucrats, power. But actually, the one thing about dissociative personality disorder is you can never feel happiness. In fact, you can only feel misery. So the way to reduce your misery is possible because that's the only way they can feel good about themselves. Okay? So this is dissociative identity disorder. As you can see, intrusive thoughts, okay, internal voices. It's not a great feeling to have this. All right. Donald Rumsfeld, and after 9/11, America decided that they need to take offensive. They need to hunt down the terrorists and control their behavior. And so they start to arrest terrorists. But then bad things start to happen, okay? So this is a prison, and this is pretty disgusting stuff. And this was leaked to CBS News, and CBS News showed their soldiers who went crazy, and they went rogue. So we've arrested them, and we punished them. But then they discovered that were responsible for this program. So these are two psychologists, and they were sued by the victims. And during the court testimony, we discovered that they were paid $80 million by the CIA to develop this program. So what is going on here? This is not something that happened randomly. It was designed by the government. It's an experiment to change the mentality of these terrorists. Okay, the virtuous hero, and turn him to Osiris through certain techniques. Okay? Remember, Ra, the identity, is the virtuous hero who fights Apophis every day. Osiris is a person who helped learn helplessness. Is also the person who developed a new theory called positive psychology. His name is Martin. So that's a theory, and it's a great theory, and this is what most people believe. The problem, though, is because after the CIA started to torture all these prisoners, they became ISIS, Islamic State. ISIS is the name of what? The Egyptian goddess who saved Osiris, right? And who fathered Horus. Do you think it's a coincidence? Maybe not. Okay? Maybe not. So ISIS is this fanatical death cult that are terrorists controlled by the United States. So it's really strange. The United States thought that they were going to use the psychology to turn Ra, the terrorist, into Osiris, the citizen. But they ended up doing the reverse. Osiris became Ra. How stupid were they? Right? And these guys were paid $80 million to be this stupid. ISIS recruitment is still ongoing, unchecked by Egyptian authorities, and fueled in substantial part by the torture and other abuse that pervade Egyptian prisons. So it's really strange how these prisons... Well, Let's go back to Guantanamo Bay. What happened? He's a Saudi citizen who was captured, and he told us what they were doing to him, okay? So we're gonna go through his story, and you tell me what the story reminds you of. So they basically were for him. Then they used a power drill to him up. Whoa, do you guys remember the story? Oh, and also sexual humiliation, right? Where they had a woman who tried to seduce him. What is the story, guys? What is the story? It's a story of Egypt. This is what they did in the Middle East. Let me ask you this question. If you really wanted to get information from these terrorists, what's the best way to do that? Pay, all right? So, 5,000 years ago, they were doing this to Pharaoh. And now they figure out who anyone using drugs, using torture, using ritual abuse. Okay? So all these ISIS fighters, they're robots controlled by the American military. They're drones, they're human drones used. Okay, why is this important? It's important because 5,000 years ago, trying to control a few years ago, the CIA, the US government admitted we actually did this, but not anymore, okay? We did this before, but not today. Not today, okay? It was a program designed to test the effects of drugs and brainwashing on innocent American citizens, especially children. Okay? Just so you know, most of the documentation, the most sensitive documentation, was destroyed by the participants. So we only have a few of the documents. But some of the things that they were doing was brainwashing, okay, with foreign intelligence officials to conduct mind control research. Okay, so the things you can do, for example, they started a brothel. And so if you came to the brothel, they gave you drugs, okay, like LSD. And they were trying to figure out how to control your mind. But they won't do this to most people, right? Okay, well, I'll show you later on. You'll be surprised. Okay, so this is the population. And you're like, well, this is just weird. And if you talk to experts, like, well, okay, so MK Ultra did work, but they hide the fact of its effectiveness. And the results of MK Ultra have spread throughout society. Guys, good news. You're now the Pharaoh, okay? Each and every one of you are now the Pharaoh. Congratulations. Something really funny about psychologists is this, but psychologists have been known to have a greater propensity to have mental illness and better psychologically after seeing a psychologist. You guys might have, and I'm sure there are lots and lots of people who benefited from seeing a psychologist, but I myself have never met anyone or seen anyone who's benefited from seeing a psychologist. And that's really weird because if you break your leg and you go to a doctor and like for years and years your leg doesn't get better, well, that's a problem, right? Okay, so any questions? Questions, guys? And we'll be expanding these topics as we move on, okay? But some key takeaways is all societies are first and foremost concerned with social control. And what's really interesting is who we are as a human being has not changed.
In that case, shouldn't the social media be controlled by government? Like, for example, why Twitter?
Question, okay. So if it's true that social media is a mechanism for social control, why are they being controlled by private citizens who've made billions of dollars doing it, right? Okay, well, controlled by these cables that run around the world. Who built all these cables? The US military. Do you think they would do this for free? Why would they do this? Are all this infrastructure that's being controlled and protected by the US military? So why would the military? I don't know what they did in Egypt 5,000 years ago. I'm just speculating. It's just a theory. It's a nice theory, but I have no evidence that it's true. Okay? This is a disclaimer. Take what I say with a grain of salt. be skeptical and doubtful of what I say. All right? Okay, any more questions?